Hi everyone, I'm Lynn Langit. Happy holidays! For the holiday season, I decided to make a screencast about a Power BI sample that the product team made that I thought was playing around with and I thought was fun and I thought I would share it with you. This is called the Santa Tracker, and the team at Microsoft made this sample to show off where Santa was and to show the power of Power BI. So you can get the sample at this blog post right here, and I'll go ahead and show you the blog, and then I'll show you what it looks like. And also there's some interesting things you can learn in addition to the fun of seeing where Santa is. So here's the blog post to get this workbook, and it shows the various power views inside of it. So I was reading the blog post and I thought, oh, I want to get this and play with it. So here it is. So here is the workbook open inside of Excel, and you can see that they show where they got some of their data from. Although when I go and look at the model, I'll show you that they were very interesting in places where they got the data and how they modeled it. So first let's see the results. So they made a series of dashboards, and you can see here's the first dashboard. This data is from slightly before Christmas, and it is static data. And I'll show you how to check that in a second. But you can see that they are displaying who's tracking Santa, and here they're using various controls. You can see they've brought up the flags for each of the countries, and then aggregated or counted the tweets and displayed them on a Bing map control. You can see they've got a couple data sets over to the right, and anything that can be displayed on a map is indicated by this little globe right here. And these are, of course, your calculated fields. Some of them are calculated dynamically and some are calculated in the model. So these are the fields that are displayed, and then of course this is something that you could pop out, you could filter. This one is who's tracking Santa visitors over time, and they've got the countries, and this is one of the really kind of neat controls in PowerView where you can actually play the time series, and you can see how the countries kind of move. US stays way up in the front, but you can see here how they move. Now, I popped out in PowerView previously. I can show the filters here. I could filter for a particular day or set of days. So the next one they've got is a tweet map. And again, I can close my filters out here if I want to, and they're showing obviously US intense Twitter activity, lots of Twitter activity in Europe and then the rest of the world, and they're showing based on a certain query string, so Santa sighting, saw Santa, or hashtag Santa sighting. And again, if you wanted to filter, you could just click and that would automatically filter. So really shows the dynamic nature of Power View very nicely in the sample. Then they have Twitter mentions, again showing some of the different controls, and then just some regular controls over here in Excel that makes use of some of the things like the slicer filters and some of the different controls here. So there's Twitter people and Twitter summaries, and it also exposes some of the aggregations. Now, being the data person that I am, the visualization was fun and interesting, but I wanted to kind of see how the model was made because I'm often making dashboards for clients and I like to see best practices. So in addition to the fun of the interactivity of the Power View, I suggest that you take a look at the PowerPivot model because there's some complexity here that I think is interesting. So as I mentioned, this is not refreshable, so you can see that right here. And if I go to the diagram view, we see that we have a relatively complex data structure here, number of underlying tables, which again, there's a lot of best practices around modeling that, although this is a fun app, I find it kind of useful. For example, there is a dimension table here, and if you want to go to the data, just click Go To, and this, just helps to aggregate counts of early morning, afternoon, evening, which is what we wanted to look at in this case. So again, best practice. So it looks like they use some public data as well, which is a trend around what I call small big data, or the analysis of data beyond the initial source. In other words, enhancing the data, as you might remember, because they did it by country and they showed the flags. And again, this shows where they got the information from. So I would assume, public census data, so on and so forth. So you can see the country flags. That was just mined off of a flag repository, the CIA.gov. So what I recommend that you do when you play with the sample is you pull this model down, you take a look at the model, and you take a look at the source data. I would assume they also use Power Query to pull the data out and to shape the data. There's another table that was kind of interesting, this utility table, because it has a bunch of aggregates in the model. So if you're just getting into DAX, which is the aggregate language for Power BI, there's some, really just sort of common DAX patterns in here. So like I said, even though there's a lot of richness on the front, I'm equally interested in the richness on the back. That's why I'm taking the time to make this short screencast. So I recommend that you pull this down, open it up, take a look at it, have fun with it, and use it to learn. So just to recap, I had given you the URL before the demo, and this demo uses Power View very elegantly. It uses PowerPivot, and I recommend that you open that model and take a look. They didn't get a chance to show you Power Query, but you can actually go to some of those sources that are listed in the data in PowerPivot, like the CIA.gov and all that, and see what the data look like, and try to pull it in and use Power Query to shape it, so you can kind of reverse engineer it. So to end this out, it is the holidays, and we want to think about giving thanks and giving back. And I just want to remind you that the best way I know of to give thanks and give back is to help our next generation. So take a minute to think about how we can help educate from a technical standpoint, and you might make use of the resources at my nonprofit, teachingkidsprogramming.org, where we have free courseware in C# on Pluralsight, at our site for Java or Small Basic, to introduce kids ages 10 and up to programming. So have a wonderful holiday, and for All Things Data, this is Lynn Langit.